the Indiana Fever just sent shockwaves through the WNBA. Hours after their elimination, the franchise made a stunning move, releasing 8 players in a single night. Fans were stunned, insiders blindsided, and rival teams scrambling for answers. What could push a team to wipe out nearly half its roster overnight? Was this a bold rebuild or a desperate reaction to another underwhelming season? I believe a lot of players will be exiting the building like Elvis, bruh. They gotta get the hell out of Dodge. Now I'm telling you right now, I believe more than half of this team is gonna leave. I just gotta keep it real. A lot of players is gonna leave. I believe a few big names is probably gonna leave. And more importantly, we need to get the ball back to Kate. This isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about control, urgency, and the race to build a winning team around Caitlin Clark before time runs out. The move signals that Indiana isn't content being mediocre, and that every decision now revolves around maximizing the league's biggest star. No one projected them to go this far, especially without Caitlin Clark. Granted, they was projected to be, final contenders, but that was with the roster that they had. Obviously, they had a whole nother roster, and like I keep telling you, momentum was the key. When the final buzzer sounded, the locker room atmosphere was tense. Players sat in silence, realizing some had just played their last minutes in a Fever jersey. Sources say this shakeup wasn't spontaneous. It had been brewing for weeks. Friction between management and coach Stephanie White over rotations and chemistry had reached a breaking point. The late-season collapse only confirmed what everyone already knew. Something had to give. By season's end, the front office had decided to start over. The Fever system was holding Clark back, forcing her into rigid sets instead of the open, high-tempo style that made her a legend at Iowa. The offense had become predictable and slow, stripping away her creativity. Clark carried the load, but the joy that once defined her game was fading. Meanwhile, injuries exposed the team's lack of depth and conditioning. The result? A total loss of rhythm, energy, and belief. Granted, they was running his off-ball and doing all these different experiments. Without momentum, I don't believe they would have made it as far. I believe they was playing meaningful basketball just due to the amount of injuries that the team took. And it kind of motivated them. They said it in their exit interview. The bitch power pretty much motivated them. It gave them the energy they need to prolong and get through a bunch of them long stretches in the series. So after elimination, the calls went out before sunrise. 8 players were informed they wouldn't return. Ruthless, yes, but also deliberate. The Fever were done surviving. They wanted to win. The message was clear. This team would now be built entirely around Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell. Inside the organization, many had been pushing to return to the kind of system that unleashed Clark's full potential. Fast, instinctive, and unpredictable. Even Lisa Bluter's Iowa offense came up in internal discussions as a model. That system didn't just make Clark a scorer, it made her the conductor of everything around her. It's a huge reason why I came here, and that's what she preached to me in the recruiting process. You're going to have the ball in your hands a lot. And I think a lot of my final schools kind of had that same look, but I think the read-to-react offense that we run was super important for myself. You're making basketball reads. It's not a set. You're not being told what to do every single time you come down the floor. You're just playing the game you love. With new cap space, the Fever can finally find players who fit her game. Shooters, movers, and playmakers who thrive in rhythm. One insider even joked, if you can't cut, shoot, or keep up with Caitlin, don't bother coming to camp. Clark herself has been patient but honest. In interviews, she's hinted that she wants a more fluid, natural style, saying she just wants to play basketball again. Behind those careful words is a competitor tired of limits. She knows when she's free to lead, the entire team levels up. This roster purge marks a new beginning. For the first time, the Fever are truly aligning their identity with the generational player who transformed them into must-watch basketball. They're betting everything on Clark's style, fast, fearless, and fluid. If they get this rebuild right, Indiana could rise from frustration to contender status within a year. But if they miss again, they risk wasting the prime of a player who's already carrying the league's momentum on her shoulders. One thing's for sure, Caitlin Clark isn't just part of the Fever's future. She is the future. And after this shake-up, it finally looks like the organization is ready to build a team worthy of her. Let me see, Bree Hall gone, Shea Patty gone, Natasha Howard gone, Bree Turner gone, Damsher's gone, that's 5. Area power Sydney Colson. And Dabs 8, yep. I believe they lose 8 players. For Indiana Fever fans, this isn't just a roster overhaul. It's an identity shift. Everyone knows what happens when Caitlin Clark is unleashed. The energy changes, the pace accelerates, and even opponents look rattled. This rebuild isn't about cutting players, it's about cutting excuses. It's about aligning every decision, coaching, recruiting, rotations, around the one player who reignited the WNBA's relevance. If the Fever truly commit to that vision, they could become unstoppable. But that depends on head coach Stephanie White. The same coach once credited for stabilizing the team now finds herself under pressure to evolve. Her structured offense, once considered safe, now looks outdated next to Clark's free-flowing brilliance. The front office has drawn the line. Either she adapts or becomes the next to go. Behind closed doors, White's relationship with management has quietly fractured. Her methodical play calling clashes with the franchise's new direction. Fast, instinctive basketball built around Clark's creativity. Insiders say the tension peaked late in the season when executives pushed for an open offense led by Clark's decision-making, while White insisted the roster wasn't ready for that kind of freedom. The result was a cold power struggle that ended in playoff elimination, and management saw that as proof her system had hit its limit. Fans saw the symptoms before the rumors. The Fever offense was predictable: slow pick and rolls, forced isolations, and hesitant spacing. Clark's improvisation was stifled by a playbook that treated her like a system player instead of a generational one. Her frustration showed in her body language, the hesitation before fast breaks, the glances at the bench, the visible tension. It wasn't rebellion. It was a star being handcuffed. Now, after 8 players were released, the spotlight turns to White. Her future depends on whether she can adjust to a style that mirrors Clark's Iowa success. Fluid, creative, and relentless. The front office is already eyeing coaches who can bring a modern identity, one built on movement and instinct. If White resists, the next press release from Indiana won't be about a player. It'll be about a new coach. When the cuts hit social media, chaos followed. Fans scrambled to understand what just happened. 8 players gone in one night. But once the names surfaced, the logic became clear. This wasn't random, it was a reset. Bree Hall, Shea Petty, and Damiris Dantas were the first wave, consistent effort but no lasting impact. The team needed reliability, not flashes. Then came the big name, Natasha Howard, a proven veteran with rings to show for it, but her salary demands didn't fit a team restructuring around Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell. Next, Chloe Bibby and Sydney Colson. Bibby was beloved by fans but inconsistent. Colson's charisma and leadership weren't enough to offset her limited production. The Fever wanted youth and speed, not nostalgia. The final wave, Aerial Powers, Odyssey Sims, and Brianna Turner, sealed the shift. Powers never clicked with Clark's rhythm, while Sims and Turner were solid, but didn't fit the long-term plan. 8 players gone, and just like that the Fever had cap flexibility they hadn't seen in years. The response was split. Some praised the decisiveness, calling it the moment Indiana finally grew up. Others worried it was too aggressive. But to management, it was simple. They couldn't rebuild the future while clinging to the past. Painful, but necessary, one executive reportedly said. Inside the locker room, the hierarchy has changed completely. For the first time since Clark's arrival, everything revolves around her, not just as a scorer, but as the franchise cornerstone. The veterans who once dictated tempo are mostly gone, replaced by players who will adapt to Clark's style rather than slow it down. Kelsey Mitchell now stands as one of the few veterans still trusted by the front office. Her chemistry with Clark improved dramatically toward the end of the season, especially when the offense sped up. Insiders say she's now viewed as the bridge between eras, a leader who can mentor younger players while adjusting to a system that finally prioritizes flow over structure. Then there's Aaliyah Boston, steady and unshakable. Together with Clark, she forms the foundation of everything Indiana hopes to become. Clark is the spark. Boston is the anchor. Every roster move from now on will be built around complementing their partnership. Shooters who space the floor, screen setters who open lanes, and defenders who let the duo focus on dominating offensively. Not everyone loves this new direction. A few players reportedly worry that the franchise has become too dependent on Clark's stardom, that the pressure on her is reaching unsustainable levels. After all, she's not just Indiana's leader, she's the league's spotlight. Every headline, every camera, every question begins and ends with her name. That kind of attention can crush lesser players, but Clark's track record suggests she thrives under it. For the Fever, this is a gamble, but it's one they have to take. The old formula of balance and patience never worked. Clark's arrival changed everything. She turned Indiana from a struggling small market team into the most talked about franchise in women's basketball. Now, the organization finally seems ready to match her intensity. The 8-player purge wasn't chaos, it was clarity. It signaled the end of indecision and the beginning of purpose. Whether that purpose leads to glory or disaster depends on execution, and on whether Stephanie White can evolve before the league evolves without her. For fans, it's bittersweet. They loved some of the players who are gone, but they also know that change was overdue. The Fever can no longer be content as a nice story. They have the talent, the star power, and now, the freedom to build something real. The path ahead won't be easy. Rebuilding never is. But for the first time in years, it feels like Indiana finally knows who it is and where it's going. Inside practice, the shift is already visible. The tempo is faster, the chemistry cleaner, and the offense finally has a pulse. Players are learning to move off Caitlin Clark's instincts instead of waiting for scripted plays. It's not perfect yet. Some possessions look chaotic, but for the first time in years, there's real belief that this team could become a contender. Still, with momentum comes pressure. Every mistake, every losing streak, every off night will now carry more weight. The Fever cleaned house, but whether they cleaned it right remains to be seen. Behind all the cuts lies a truth most fans overlook. Money. This wasn't just a basketball decision. It was a financial reset. By releasing 8 players, Indiana freed up millions in cap space, positioning themselves for a bold new direction heading into 2026. The Fever's payroll had ballooned with mid-tier veterans who produced little return. Players like Natasha Howard and Ariel Powers brought experience but also hefty contracts. Both were good, not great. Solid contributors who never elevated the team. The front office grew tired of paying big money for average results. Cutting ties was painful but necessary, creating flexibility to pursue high-impact players who actually fit Clark's style. Clark has completely reshaped the Fever's business model. Ticket sales have exploded, national TV exposure has doubled, and her jersey remains a top seller across all of basketball. The front office knows it. As long as she's in Indiana, the Fever are a premium brand. That means every dollar matters more. Ownership wants to capitalize while the spotlight's bright, turning short-term buzz into sustainable growth. This isn't just a rebuild, it's an investment strategy. Every roster move, every partnership, every contract now runs through the Caitlin Clark filter. Fever executive Amber Cox is reportedly leading the charge. Her blueprint? Surround Clark with low-cost, high-IQ shooters who can stretch the floor, hit open looks, and buy into a fast-paced modern system. No more expensive veterans eating up minutes. No more dead salary on the bench. Indiana wants players who move without the ball, play team defense, and let Clark dictate tempo. Think Iowa on steroids, just within budget. In a league where other franchises overspend chasing super teams, the Fever are quietly building something smarter. A sustainable model. One that fits stylistically, financially, and long-term. They're not after hype, they're after control. Build around Clark and Aaliyah Boston, and never again get trapped by bloated contracts. Of course, not everyone's cheering. Some agents have slammed the Fever for being too ruthless, saying it sends a message that loyalty means nothing. But to Indiana's front office, loyalty doesn't win championships, discipline does. They're betting that smart spending, modern offense, and internal accountability will turn this team into a contender that lasts. These cuts weren't just about trimming a roster. They were about trimming excuses. The message is simple. If you don't deliver, on the court or on the balance sheet, you're gone. From now on, everything in Indiana runs through two forces, Caitlin Clark and the bottom line. The moment the news broke, social media lit up. Fever purge and Clark era trended for hours. Some fans hailed it as the boldest move in franchise history. Others accused management of losing control. The WNBA hadn't seen a shakeup like this in years, and everyone had an opinion. For Clark supporters, this was vindication. They'd been saying it all season. The Fever wasted too much time forcing her into a system that didn't suit her. The rallying cry returned. Let her cook. Comment sections, talk shows, and podcasts all echoed the same demand. Give Caitlin the freedom she had at Iowa. The logo threes, the no-look passes, the fearlessness that made her appointment viewing. Fans didn't want another rigid system. They wanted Caitlin basketball. But not everyone agreed. Critics called it dangerous, saying the Fever were surrendering control to a single star. Some argued the team had caved to sponsor and fan pressure, building around one player instead of trusting long-term development. Others warned that placing all your chips on a young player, no matter how transcendent, could backfire if chemistry falters. Even ESPN panels debated whether Indiana's bold move was genius or panic. Inside the locker room, emotions were mixed. Players close to those cut described the mood as somber but unsurprising. Farewell posts filled social media, thank yous mixed with subtle jabs about miscommunication and business decisions. Meanwhile, younger players were buzzing with excitement. To them, this was a clean slate. For the first time, the team felt unified around one vision. The national media ran with the story. Sports shows debated how this shift might alter the WNBA's power structure. Analysts noted that while Indiana had lost 8 players, it had gained something even more valuable: relevance. Every headline, every debate, every conversation was about the Fever. Whether fans agreed or not, Indiana was now at the center of women's basketball. With that attention comes pressure. The front office can't afford to misstep now. They've created space and set expectations sky high. Now they have to deliver. Insiders say the Fever already have a targeted off-season plan. Sign shooters who thrive off Clark's passing, wings who can defend without slowing the pace, and veteran leaders who know how to win. One executive described the ideal roster as fast, fearless, and fluid. Translation: basketball that looks like Clark plays it. The coaching staff is under equal scrutiny. Reports suggest practices next season will emphasize movement, spacing, and read-based reactions rather than strict play calls. It's a full-on culture shift, from rigid structure to creative flow. It's the kind of basketball fans have begged to see since Clark's arrival. But transformation takes time. Building chemistry, managing egos, and surviving growing pains will be the real test. Clark's rise has made the Fever the WNBA's most scrutinized team. Every turnover will spark debate, every loss will trigger think pieces, and every highlight will go viral. For a player barely entering her prime, that's an enormous burden. But if her college and first 2 WNBA seasons proved anything, it's that Caitlin Clark doesn't run from pressure. She thrives on it. And that's what gives this rebuild its electricity. For the first time in years, Indiana isn't just playing basketball, it's building something. Fans are buying in again, merchandise is selling out, and the Fever are the talk of the sport. This isn't hype, it's anticipation. The Fever haven't just reset their roster. They've reset their identity, their finances, and their culture. They've chosen a future defined by risk, ambition, and belief in a player who changed the league the moment she arrived. If this works, the 2025 purge will be remembered as the night Indiana turned the corner.